I won Christmas this year. Christmas Eve had left Peter Parker feeling drained. All the people he had to talk to, the chores he had to help with to make sure everything was just right for the following morning, and the minuscule but constant thought of what the social worker might say to the courts and lawyers. This was the most stressful month of Peter's life, and for good reason. This was the month when his family would legally become a family. Or it's Christmas morning and Tony gifts Peter the adoption papers. This is 1,865 words. Christmas Eve had left Peter Parker feeling drained. All the people he had to talk to, the chores he had to help with to make sure everything was just right for this following morning, and the minuscule but constant thought of what the social worker might say to the courts and lawyers. This was the most stressful month of Peter's life, and for good reason. This was the month when his family would legally become a family. It was early Christmas morning, and Tony could hardly wait. This was the most excited he'd ever been for Christmas. Scratch that, for anything. He crept into Peter's room, making his way to the bed. Peter, it's Christmas, wake up! He was like a little kid poking the spiderling in an attempt to rouse him. Peter rolled over, groaning. Sleeping. Back hurts. I'll carry you. Tony sat down on top of his spiderling, squishing him. He knew Peter's super strength could handle his weight. Hell, it could handle a whole building. Come on. Why are you squishing me? Peter looked, looking at the clock. Mr. Stark, it's 5 in the morning. Exactly. I've been up for hours. I've been kind and gracious, and I let you sleep in. He grinned down at Peter. I'm squishing you 'cause I can't, and the only way you can get me off is by standing up. You don't sleep. Pepper doesn't like that. You should sleep more. Peter rubbed his eyes and flipped over. I take offense to that kid. I sleep a lot. You just don't like where I sleep. Tony had been known to fall asleep in the most random of places, usually due to extreme fatigue after bouts of insomnia. Well, I have normal sleep brain, so I would like to take advantage of that and rest my body. He shoved Tony off with one hand, sending the mite flying across the room. Oops. Tony got up indignantly. I did that of my own violation. I'm coming back in 30, and if you're not awake, I'm dragging you out of bed. He left the room, impatiently sitting on the couch. After what felt like 5 minutes, Peter, his mentor, was back. Fine, I'll get up. Tony grinned widely. Let's go, Underoos. I already badgered May into getting up too. She's making coffee. Do you have that white chocolate creamer that I like? The one that Hobby said has too much sugar? We're all stocked up on that, kid. Good. Peter pushed himself out of bed, throwing on a red Stark Industries jumper and reindeer slippers before making his way to the common room. He yawned, drawing looks from the adventurers already sitting around the tree. Merry Christmas, Queens. Steve nodded in his direction, smiling softly. Nat laughed and took a sip of her black coffee, elbowing him. The kid is not ready for your motivational speaker voice. He just woke up. Correction, Tony said, entering the room. I woke him up half an hour ago, but lazy bones wanted to sleep in. He sat himself on the couch next to Steve. You're the one to talk. You're the last one up like every year since forever. Clint crossed his arms. Bruce chimed in. The one year he was up early was because he was so hungover he couldn't stop vomiting all night, he sighed. Good times. Tony promptly flipped off the room. It just so happens that I've turned over a new leaf. I'm going to be annoyingly excited from now on. Deal with it. He rolled his eyes with a smirk. Speaking of, gift time. Peter smiled and rested his head on one of the couch cushions, fighting to stay awake against the early morning haze. Tony shook Peter gently. Gift time. Go open your gifts. Be a normal child. The man of spiders is not a normal child, said Thor, frowning. It's okay, Mr. Thor. I'll be fine. Peter yawned again and stood up, grabbing a random package and opening it to find socks from Dr. Bruce Banner. Wow. Thanks, Dr. Banner. These are really cool. Tony laughed along with the others as Peter opened up various gifts. Some were inside jokes, some were Legos, all things Peter liked. That is, until he got to Tony's gift. The man was practically vibrating with excitement. It was in an envelope roughly the size of a piece of paper, and it had been tied with a ribbon. Peter sighed. It was probably a collection of files for colleges or something. He caught May grinning out of this corner of his eye and thought his suspicions would be confirmed until Tony's death gripped Steve's hand as the boy read through the papers contained in the envelope. So, what do you think? He squeaked out, heart in his throat. Now, Peter wasn't stupid. We all know this, but he didn't understand. How could this be real? He swallowed hard, going over the package of papers for a second time. Tony pursed his lips, the room dead silent. It's all for real, kid, he whispered. No, it can't be real, right? This is all a prank? He laughed nervously. Peter was scared of the genuine emotion he would express in front of everyone if Mr. Stark there notarized and everything, signed by our social worker and the lawyer. There, you're gonna be mine soon. May cleared her throat. And May's still, but you know what I mean. He was rambling, clearly nervous. Does Peter looked at May, who nodded reassuringly. Do I have me and you now forever? Forever and always, kid, Tony responded, smiling widely. Technically, Bruce interjected, you do need to have the finalization in court, where you'll get the certificate of adoption if the judge. Peter ignored him, turning to Tony and burying himself in his dad's arms. Tony laughed and wrapped his arms around the boy. You're my son, he whispered. A sob ran through Peter's body, and he held tightly to Tony as he tried to keep himself together. The man just clutched his son in his arms, barely making it through the wave of emotions. Those bearing witness had seldom dry eye. Oh, bambino. Dad! Peter sniffled, climbing into his lap, hand sticking to Tony's back. He cupped the boy's cheek, wiping away the tears as they came back and rocking him gently. You don't gotta cry, kiddo. Let him cry, Tony, sighed Peter, petting her husband's shoulder. All right, he relented, kissing Peter's forehead and playing with his curls. This was his son. The following minutes passed in silence, only punctuated by muffled, quiet cries from Peter. Suddenly there was a loud honking noise. Thor was blowing his nose and sobbing openly. That was so beautiful! Tony laughed and patted the spot next to him. Ah, come here, big guy. The god nodded and sniffling and hugging Peter. I'm so happy for you, man of spiders. Peter laughed through his tears, sighing and wiping at his eyes. I won Christmas this year, Tony said, smiling confidently. Always the competitor. May hugged her nephew as well, planting a kiss on his curls. Peter grinned and sticking himself from May. Yeah, I think you did. Tony kicked back the couch, hands behind his head. Wouldn't put it past me. I am the best. Sure, Tones. Steve clapped Peter on the back, nodding in approval. See, even America's sweetheart agrees. America's sweetheart, Bucky teased, affectionately flicking Steve. He swatted Bucky's hand. Oh, quit it, Buck, he grumbled, a small smile on his face. Peter looked over at Tony, his tear face shining in the morning light. I love you. He looked down at May to confirm what he'd heard, then back at Peter. Before he the kid knew it. He was enveloped in a giant hug, mostly to hide the tears brimming in the older man's eyes. I love you too. And we love you, man of spiders! Thor boomed, holding tightly to Natasha, who had a grimace plastered on his face. Tony sniffled a little, wiping at his totally non existent tears, laughing at Nat. You're having a blast, aren't you, Romanoff? As you know, I am a huge fan of emotion, she responded, rolling her eyes and holding back a smile. Aha! Tony pointed at Natasha's almost smile. I see one right now. Back off, Stark. I'm all good. Just happy for the kid. She gave a small thumbs up, kicking Thor in the stomach to release herself from his grip. Tony started. Uh-huh, sure. Well, Bruce said, grinning and standing up. Does anyone want tea before we continue? I have many more stocks to give out, and everyone needs to stay hydrated. Tony sighed, pinching his temple. I'd be happy to have some. As Bruce brewed the tea, Peter climbed up the wall and stuck himself to the ceiling. So, who's next? I, uh, I have a gift for you, Steve. Bucky stepped forward, trying to hide his extremely nervous demeanor. Cap smiled up at his boyfriend. Thanks, all. What it is. Hang on. There's a bit of a soliloquy before the gift. Bucky cleared his throat, clasping his shaking hands behind his back. Stevie, since you confessed you love me, things have been different, and I look for you in every room. I want to be around you constantly. And at first I thought it was just, the honeymoon phase of our relationship, but he explained. As time went on, it didn't fade away. Instead, it blossomed and grew bigger, and I could have imagined. I think that's when I realized he took Steve's hands in his. I'm in love with you, Steve Rogers, and I think I want to spend the rest of my life in love with you, so he got down on one knee, holding a small box in his hand. Want to marry me? Steve looked stunned, but he knew exactly what to say. With no tears or screams, the super soldier grinned, nodding 1,000 times yes. Bucky grinned back. Awesome. He stood up, sliding the ring onto Steve's finger. The room applauded. Congratulations were wished, and toasts were made. Tony put his head on his hands. God, this is gonna be a PR nightmare. We live to inconvenience you, Stark, Bucky teased, kissing his fiancée on the cheek. And just when I was beginning to trust you, Tony responded, rolling his eyes. Dad, don't be mean. Mr. Bucky and Mr. Steve are so good together. Peter smiled, dropping down from the ceiling and hugging them both. Bucky laughed and hugged him back. See, this kid's attitude is the best. Love you, Pete. Steve nodded in agreement. You're a good kid, Queens. Keep it up. I will, and I can help with anything for the wedding, like getting up to the high places to hang stuff. Bucky laughed. Kid, we're getting married on Stark's time. No need to help. It'll be taken care of. I don't know why I keep you guys around, Tony groaned, standing up and wrapping his arms around Peter in a protective hug. Anyways, Merry Christmas, kiddo.